I never thought a millionaire would see me, a humble cleaner, and change my life forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The day my world flipped upside down. I was in the middle of scrubbing the marble floors of an opulent penthouse, the scent of lemon cleaner mixing with the faint whiff of expensive cologne. Sweating and feeling invisible, I glanced at my reflection in the shiny surface, a ghost of someone I wished I could be. The truth? I was drowning in debt, barely scraping by, and my dreams were slipping through my fingers like sand. My hands trembled as I wiped away a smudge, my heart pounding in my chest, desperate for a life beyond this monotonous grind. I thought of my mom, her tired eyes filled with hope that I'd do more. That I'd be more. I wanted to scream, to tell her I was trying. But the silence of that huge, empty apartment echoed back at me. Suddenly, a shadow loomed. I looked up. There was him, Lucas Hart, the enigmatic millionaire everyone whispered about. He was known not just for his wealth, but for his icy demeanor. Rumors swirled about his cold heart. I found myself staring, breath caught in my throat. He was tall, dark hair slicked back, as if sculpted from marble. He studied me with eyes so piercing, I felt my skin prickle. "What are you cleaning?" His voice cut through the silence. I faltered. "The floors, sir," I managed to whisper, feeling small and utterly exposed. I'd never spoken to someone like him before. He inched closer, the air crackling with tension. I felt my cheeks burn. People like him never even glanced my way. In that moment, he smiled a genuine smile that melted the ice. My heart raced. I could hardly breathe. I felt like a moth drawn to a flame. But just as quickly, he straightened, his mask slipping back into place. "Let me know when you're done," he said, striding away. The warmth of his presence lingered, leaving me confused and shaken. What was he doing here, and why did he even care? As I cleaned, my thoughts swirled. A million questions chased each other in my mind. What if I crossed paths with him again? Would I simply be a cleaner in his eyes forever? I finished my task, barely registering the time that had passed. When I emerged from my trance, I realized he was gone. But the emptiness of that penthouse suddenly felt heavier. The shadows closed in, and for the first time, I wondered, could this chance encounter lead to something more? Or was it just another fleeting moment, lost like so many before? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days stretched on, each one blending into the next like paint on a canvas gone awry. I returned to the penthouse multiple times that week, my routine becoming a haze of scrubbing, dusting, and avoiding thoughts of Lucas Hart. Yet, the memory of his warm smile haunted me, continuity in my otherwise mundane existence. When not working, I fantasized about those brief moments, questioning every shared glance, every whispered word. One afternoon, drenched in sweat and the scent of lemon, I found myself on my hands and knees in the grand living room. As I polished the intricate wooden furniture, my mind drifted. What would I say if I saw him again? Would I stutter like an idiot, or would I surprise myself with a sharp quip? The door swung open unexpectedly, breaking my reverie. "Good afternoon." It was Lucas again, the sunlight casting a halo around him. I scrambled to rise, stomach churning. "Sir, I didn't expect," he waved away my words with a casual flick of his hand, clearly more comfortable with the chaos of his world than I was with this one. His gaze drifted to the expansive view of the city beyond. "You're always here. Don't you ever get tired?" His question hung in the air, a thin veil of concern laced within the enigma of his demeanor. Suddenly, vulnerability washed over him, softer than the cool marble on which I knelt. "Sometimes," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "but am grateful to have work." He nodded, almost thoughtfully, then looked at me, his eyes searching. "And what about your own dreams? Do you have dreams?" The question pierced through my steady heart like a needle. I was prepared to hide behind humility, but there was something in his expression that urged me on, so I took the leap. "I dream of a better life," I admitted, feeling a swell of both shame and freedom. Something more than cleaning floors in a world that forgets people like me. Lucas shifted slightly, darkness shadowing his features. What if you had a chance to live that dream? My heart raced in disbelief. What do you mean? His lip twitched, a half-smile that did little to reach his eyes. It's more complicated than it looks. But if you're serious, perhaps there's more we could explore together. His words hung in the room like fragile glass, and I feared shattering them with a breath. I could feel hope teetering on a precipice. Before I could respond, the moment shattered as a voice echoed down the hall. Lucas, there you are. With that, an elegantly dressed woman appeared, her heels clicking on the floor, confident and poised, the complete opposite of my ragged self. I recognized her as Claudia, Lucas' business partner, a name that floated through the whispers of the social elite. Claudia, he acknowledged, irritation flickering in his voice. She leaned in, brushing past me as if I were nothing, her gaze barely acknowledging my presence. Busy as always? She asked, her tone dismissive as she rifled through some files in her hand. We'll be late for the meeting if you dally any longer. Every inch of my spirit sank as she drew his attention away from me, his aura dimming under her spotlight. My pulse quickened as I anticipated being forgotten, invisible once more. But before he turned away entirely, Lucas glanced at me one last time. We'll talk, he promised, and with that, he followed Claudia, leaving me to explore my swirling thoughts. Days grew heavy following that encounter. The sparkle of hope dimmed under the relentless weight of my reality. I returned home each night to find my mother asleep in her chair, the glow of the TV casting shadows across her face. My heart ached to give her more, to alleviate the burdens she bore with such grace. Then, on a particularly dismal afternoon, as I walked home from work, a surprising act shifted the course of my day. A street vendor, a kind old man with a weathered face and a gentle smile, stopped me. You look like you could use something warm, he said, handing me a steaming cup of soup. I hesitated, but the warmth emanating from the cup felt like a hug on a cold day. I can't take this. I don't have any money. Consider it a gift, he insisted, his eyes warm with kindness. You always seem in need of a bit of light, and am in the mood to share. With a heart full of gratitude, I accepted. As I sipped the soup, its warmth spread through me, igniting forgotten dreams and flickers of hope. For the first time in weeks, I felt the despair lifting ever so slightly. But as I turned the corner towards home, my heart sank into my stomach. There, at the end of the street, outside my apartment, stood Lucas. His presence was both magnetic and terrifying, and with the soup still warm in my hands, I wondered if the universe had conspired for this very moment or twisted fate to ensnare me in another storm. What could he want now? As I approached, I swallowed down my fears, not ready to let this moment slip into obscurity. In the back of my mind, a single thought spiraled, demanding clarity amidst the tumult. Was this a second chance, or a cruel twist of fate that would lead to yet another heartbreak? The weight of anticipation pressed down on my heart as I prepared for whatever revelation was about to unfold. My heart thudded loudly in my chest as I stepped closer, the comforting warmth of the soup contrasting sharply with the nervy chill creeping through my bones. Lucas appeared, caught between surprise and concern, his brow furrowed as he took in my unexpected appearance. Hey, he said softly, his voice a welcome balm to my frazzled nerves. I didn't think I'd find you here, Guy. What was I supposed to say? He was a billionaire standing outside my modest apartment, the world between us stretching vast and unbridgeable. I just finished work that I wanted to talk, he replied, glancing around nervously as if he were worried about being seen. The shadows of the falling night wrapped around us, cocooning this unlikely encounter. Can we inside? The suggestion sent a tremor of excitement through me that was nearly as alarming as it was thrilling. This could be the moment my dreams began to shift, a turning point I had secretly hoped for since our last conversation. I nodded and led him inside, allowing feelings of audacity and fear to mingle in the quiet of my small apartment. Once inside, he paused for a moment, taking in the modest decor, the worn couches, and the framed photographs that chronicled our lives in faded smiles. You have a lovely home, he said, his sincerity weaving through the air. Thank you, I replied, feeling a rush of warmth at his compliment. I gestured him to sit while I placed the soup on the table, A gesture that felt almost absurd against the backdrop of his wealth. He sank into the couch, the tension in his shoulders slowly easing. "You said you wanted something more," he began, hesitation lingering in his tone. Something beyond this, that I felt the words catch in my throat. The vulnerability of my ambitions suddenly laid bare before someone who had every resource and privilege at his fingertips. I fumbled for a response. "I just want to find a way to do good. To help my mother. To live without worrying. I don't think that's so much to ask." And suddenly, the room felt electrified by the weight of my admission. His gaze was steady, almost searching, and in that moment, a flicker of understanding passed between us. "What if I told you I could help?" "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The gravity of his proposition hung in the air, tantalizing yet terrifying. "I've been thinking," he began, letting out a breath as if trying to place my hopes within his expansive world. "There's a community project I'm involved in. We're looking for someone to organize the daily operations, someone who understands the challenges people face, people like your mother, dummy." The suggestion took me aback. "But I don't have the experience, Lucas. I'm just a cleaner." His expression softened further, those deep-set eyes shimmering with a conviction that threatened to unravel my tightly held reality. "You're more than that. I've seen how hard you work, how much you care. And if you're willing to take a leap, I'd support you." Hope surged within me like a wild river breaking free from the constraints of a dam. But self-doubt crept in with an unwelcome persistence. "What if I fail?" My voice shook. "What if I let you down?" "Then you try again," he insisted, the fervor in his tone igniting a spark in my stagnant heart. "We all stumble, but you have to be willing to embrace the leap. It's not just a job. It's a chance to impact lives, to start building your own dreams." The conversation buzzed in my mind, but there was an unease lurking beneath the surface emotion I couldn't quite name yet. It was a mix of excitement and terror, an urge to grasp this fleeting chance paired with the fear of tearing the fragile thread of our connection. But before I could voice this tumult, the door swung open, and my mother stepped in. The light from the hallway highlighted her figure, casting softer shadows across her face, a mirror of the exhaustion she wore so bravely. Her eyes darted between Lucas and me, puzzlement etched across her features. Mom's presence brought forth an unexpected wave of panic. "Who's this, dear?" she asked, her voice tinged with the trust always swathed in confusion around new faces. "Mom," I stammered, desperately trying to gauge her reaction and shield the moment from scrutiny. "This is Lucas. He's someone I met at work." Her brow knit, and I caught a hint of concern flash through her gaze. To my astonishment, Lucas stood, extending a hand toward her, a gesture of warmth, perhaps, but one that carried an undeniable weight in its implications. "It's a pleasure to meet you," he said, his voice earnest. Mom hesitated before taking his hand, studying him with sharpened instincts. "What brings you here?" "I was just discussing a potential opportunity with your daughter. Something that might help her job," she interrupted, mistrust bubbling just beneath her calm exterior. "People like him don't just help for free." The reality of that statement hung heavily in the air, and I knew I had crossed into uncharted territory. Lucas' eyes shimmered, surprised by her bluntness. "Not like that. I genuinely want to help," he clarified, looking between us. "Your daughter is incredible. She just needs a chance to shine." The clash of perceptions echoed loudly around us. "Incredible," I murmured, the weight of my own truth sitting heavily on my shoulders as I gazed at Lucas. How could he see something extraordinary in someone so ordinary? Mom's scrutiny didn't relent as she turned to me, seeking answers. "You didn't tell me this," she managed, her voice softly edged with concern. "What's going on, sweetheart?" I swallowed hard, feeling the urgency of the moment push against my chest. "I didn't think it was real," I admitted, the tremble in my voice betraying my weariness. "But it could help us." And just as I finished my statement, Lucas seemed to sense the weight of the moment, the heaviness settling like a thick curtain around us. "If you'd like, we could discuss this further. In a place with more privacy, perhaps?" he suggested gently. But before I could respond, my mother shook her head slowly. "No, this is too much. Let's just take it slow. I don't want you running into something that could tear you apart, especially with people who are different." Her words hung over us, almost ominous, a sturdy barricade against the world Lucas inhabited. My heart sank, torn between loyalty to my mother and the gleaming path that awaited me. Lucas' expression shifted, finally revealing a hint of frustration that had simmered quietly beneath the surface. "I am sorry, but this is something to consider," he said, his voice a cascade of emotion. I urged her to take a leap. "I wouldn't push if I didn't believe she has what it takes." His words fell into the silence. I dared to look at him, this man draped in privilege, trying to extend something beautiful to me, someone considered invisible. And yet, in this cocoon of hope, my mother's fears twisted like thorns, binding my heart and mind in a conflict I couldn't untangle. "Perhaps you should leave," she finally said, her tone hardening once again, slicing through any flicker of hope that had dared to sprout. The suffocating reality loomed over me, and in that brief moment, one filled with countless emotions clashing and colliding, life shifted against the tide of uncertainty. Lucas' expression turned inscrutable as he nodded slowly, a resignation curling at the edges of his lips. "Let's talk soon," he murmured, turning to leave, and just as I was about to protest, he glanced back. "I'll wait." The door clicked shut behind him, and I could feel the weight of my mother's gaze burning holes through my reality. The air thickened, made heavier by what just transpired, an unresolved promise lingering in the space he had left. Uncertainty wrapped around me like a shroud, the line between dreams and reality threading ever thinner. What did I desire more fiercely, dreams or the comfort of my familiar understanding? The lines that separated hope from despair began to blur as my heart raced toward the chilling question. In seeking to soar, would I risk losing the very ground that kept me anchored? With trembling hands, I reached for the cup of cold, forgotten soup on the table, a reminder of kindness received, but also a mirror of the warmth I feared to lose. I stood by the window, watching the night encase the world outside like a comforting blanket, its illumination punctuated by distant streetlights flickering like promises yet to be fulfilled. My heart still echoed with the rapid beats of our encounter, and the way my mother's hesitation draped over us felt like a storm gathering on the horizon, threatening to drown my fragile hopes before they even dared to take flight. "Sweetheart," Mom's voice cut through my thoughts, fraught with concern. She moved into the small living room, seeking my gaze, her expression a mixture of disappointment and sincerity. "You can't just let someone like him influence your choices. It could go horribly wrong, and I won't let you be a pawn in some game we can't even begin to understand." "But Mom, he wants to help us," I urged, a desperate tremor threading through my words. "This could be good for both of us. It's an opportunity." "Opportunity?" she scoffed, her tone rising with a sharp edge. "What about the price you'd pay? Your pride, your comfort? I've seen people like him. They aren't always what they seemed." A standoff unfolded in our modest apartment, the air crackling with tensions that threatened to shatter our already fragile equilibrium. I understood her fears. I carried them inside me like stones, my own past weighed down by trust broken and dreams deferred. Yet here was Lucas, who shone like a beacon amid the darkness, a potential that felt dangerously fragile. "Mom, please," I tried again, battling the wave of anguish washing over me. "I have to try. I can't keep doing this without risking something, without believing in a dream." Her gaze softened briefly, revealing the unyielding love beneath her protective shield. "Dreams don't come without risks we can't afford," she said softly, her resignation apparent. "I just want to keep you safe." The ache in my chest deepened. Her desire to protect me felt more like a cage. "But what if this is my chance, Mom? A chance to become someone who can actually help you?" Silence filled the air, thick and palpable, and in that moment, I felt the distance between us stretching farther. I yearned for her to see what was at stake, to recognize the potential that stirred within me like a sleeping giant. But perhaps more than that, I craved her approval, her blessing as I stood on the threshold of the unknown. With effort, she sighed, running a hand through her hair. "All right, go ahead, but be careful. I won't stand by and watch you get hurt, especially not by someone like that." Her words settled like a winter chill. They offered no warmth, merely a cautious acceptance of my wild ambitions. It was clear she was still unconvinced, yet I felt a flicker of resolve ignite inside me, urging me to wear my courage like armor. I had to be the architect of my dreams, even if the foundations felt shaky. Later that night, alone with my thoughts, The darkness of doubt crept back into whip around the edges of my newfound hope. Somehow, the weight of my dreams and the reality of my circumstances felt at odds, a tension pulling me between aspiration and fear. Without thinking, I picked up my phone, hovering over Lucas's contact, the name glowing like a bright star amid the vast universe of possibilities. What if he really can help? I whispered to the emptiness around me. The thought of reaching out thrilled and terrified me, but I hesitated. What if my mother was right? Before I could rethink my impulses, the phone buzzed in my trembling hand. Startled, I looked down to see a text from Lucas. "Hope you're okay. I'm here if you need to talk." My heart raced. In that moment, I felt a rush of warmth course through me, as if a door had been opened just enough to let in a rush of fresh air. It was a small gesture, but it offered hope in an otherwise uncertain world, and suddenly, the distance felt less imposing. With a deep breath, I replied, pouring out my feelings, my fears, and the challenges I faced. I hit send, heart pounding as I awaited his response. Every second stretched painfully, and just as uncertainty began to settle back in, my phone buzzed. "I know this is big, and I understand your concerns, but I truly believe in you. Let's meet tomorrow morning and discuss the details. He'll be there to explain everything." His words lit up my screen, filling me with a mixture of exhilaration and dread. I had taken the first step off the ledge, but the chasm of uncertainty still lay between safety and hope. Morning arrived like a tide, washing away shadows from the night before. I stared at myself in the mirror, fighting against the swirl of emotions threatening to overtake me, a cocktail of excitement, fear, and the overwhelming need for acceptance. Mom had reluctantly backed my choice, but did that mean I should leap? As I dressed, my efforts felt futile against the gravity of the decision weighing on my heart. Doubts danced in my mind. What if I stumbled? Was Lucas' support substantial enough to carry my dreams? I set out on foot, the landscape a slosh of hope and trepidation with every step toward our meeting place. As the familiar cafe came into view, my heart lurched with anticipation. Just as I crossed the threshold, I spotted Lucas seated at the back, his presence drawing me in like a magnet. He looked up and smiled, a warmth that echoed through the distance, transforming the uncertainty into a flicker of hope. But as I approached, the cafe door swung open with a jingle, and a woman walked in, a woman in a well-tailored suit, her demeanor exuding authority and confidence. The sight was striking. She was undeniably strikingly beautiful, but it was the intensity behind her eyes that took my breath away. I froze, an electric shock running through me as she approached our table. "Lucas," she called, her voice a honeyed allure, smooth yet unsettling. "Fancy seeing you here. And who do we have?" My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know who she was, but the undercurrents of familiarity in her tone left a knot in my stomach. Lucas looked between her and me, surprise and a hint of unease flickering across his features. "Julia," this is in that moment, I felt the ground beneath my feet begin to crack. I was caught in an emotional dance of uncertainty, teetering on the brink of dreams and shadows that loomed closer with every passing second. The door I sought to push wider suddenly felt as if it might slam shut on me altogether. What had I walked into? What unspoken histories were unraveling here? And with that chilling question reverberating through the air, I realized I was clinging to my hopes as tightly as I was wrestling with the specters of my past, the very anchors that grounded me, but now threatened to pull me under. The moment felt surreal, as if time had suspended itself in a cocoon of tension. Lucas' gaze shifted back and forth between me and the striking woman, the air thick with an unacknowledged familiarity that hung between them like a dark cloud. I swallowed hard, each pulse of my heart echoing like a countdown to inevitable confrontation. "Lucas, I didn't know you were involved with someone," the woman said, her tone teasing, yet laced with something deeper. "Was it jealousy? And here I thought you preferred keeping your personal life private." Her eyes never left mine, studying me with an inscrutable intensity, as though assessing the threat I posed. That I felt small, a fragile filigree caught in a tempest. The words hung in the air like a guillotine waiting to drop, severing my fleeting hope before it could take shape. "This is Julia," Lucas finally introduced me, his voice steady despite the tension. "She's a friend." The corner of the woman's mouth turned slyly, as if she found amusement in the word friend. Ah, a friend, how charming. Her gaze pinned me like a detailed sketch in an art gallery, vulnerable, raw, and painfully exposed. If sensing my unease, Lucas leaned forward slightly. We were just talking about some plans for the future. I didn't expect you here so soon. Sarah, you're diving right into future plans, are you? She said, her voice dripping with sugar-coated skepticism. What was that about last-minute adjustments from the board? Or does it only concern you in your spare time? The insinuation danced between us, loaded with unseen implications that stung like icy raindrops. A flicker of defensiveness sparked within me. Did Lucas consider my aspirations only a passing whim? Sarah, Lucas sighed, his forehead creased, deepening as he forced a smile. This is important. I want to help Julia. Her eyes narrowed, challenging him with a blend of astonishment and disbelief. Help, or take on another project to save another soul. The implications struck me squarely in the chest, making it hard to breathe. Was that how I appeared to him? Like a raw canvas, a project needing his rescue? I marveled at how quickly my own narrative slipped from possibility to spectacle. No, it's not like that. Lucas' words rushed out now, his tone firm. It's different, I promise. Julia has something to offer. And he hesitated, searching for the right words while the silence crackled with tension. Sarah turned her attention back to me, her expression softening just a bit, but the darkness behind her eyes still lingered. And what is it exactly you think he can offer you, sweetheart? Her voice was smooth like silk, but the underlying currents of power were unmistakable. My voice trembled as I tried to gather my thoughts amidst the whirlwind of feelings. I just want a chance to break free to help my mom and make something of myself. A fleeting shadow passed over Sarah's features, a flicker of something akin to envy. Is that what all this is about? The typical rescue story? The brilliant hero saving the world one cleaning job at a time. Her words sliced through my veneer of confidence. I struggled against her critique, desperate to validate my dreams. Yet I felt small and unworthy beneath the weight of her scrutiny. The cafe, once a beacon of hope, now felt claustrophobic, echoing with insecurities I wished I could silence. What do you have to lose, Julia? Lucas interjected, sensing my hesitance. This isn't just about escapee, it's about actual opportunity. We can build something real together. His reassurance sliced through Sarah's critical eye, igniting a flicker of determination in me. I turned to him, drawing from the strength in his eyes, feeling momentarily buoyed by his belief in my worth. Before I could muster the courage to speak again, Sarah laughed softly, shaking her head. Even good intentions can lead to dark paths. You two have no idea how this world works. She leaned in closer, dropping her voice conspiratorially. There are secrets, Julia, and sometimes they unravel friendships faster than you can imagine. Unease crept in, pulling me under its icy grip. I felt raw and exposed, trapped between their conflicting energies, the budding hope of a new beginning seeping into the uncertainty of their pasts. Sarah, Lucas said, tone sharp yet pleading as he reached toward her, let's not do this here. This isn't the time or place. Her laughter faded, replaced by a disquiet fueled with mutual recognition, a silent battle of wills that neither seemed prepared to lose. With an unexpected flutter of courage, I allowed my voice to rise above the flickering tension. If there's something you're hiding, something that could hurt us, I deserve to know. Her gaze pierced through me, a tempest of emotions swirling within her. Be careful what you wish for, sweetheart. She said so quietly it felt as though she were whispering a warning, tearing at the delicate constructs of my ambition. The truth isn't always what you want it to be. The weight of her words knitted together layers of doubt and unease, coaxing the flickering light of my hope back into shadow. And as sudden as she had come, Sarah turned on her heel and vanished into the bustling cafe, leaving behind an air thick with foreboding. Lucas ran a hand over his face, his expression stormy. I'm sorry about her, Julia. She doesn't speak for me or this. But the unease had settled into my chest like a sliver of ice, a reminder of the cost that came with risking everything. What lay ahead might open doors, but now they felt locked behind walls that were slipping from my grasp. Looking into Lucas's pleading eyes, I realized that I needed to know more, to understand the shadows lurking behind his privilege. My heart quickened at the thought that perhaps this journey was going to unfurl more than I bargained for. As I left the cafe, my thoughts tangled in a storm of possibilities, one question lingered. What was truly waiting on the other side of this collision opportunity, or a deeper trap woven within desires? I had stepped closer to the precipice of my dreams, yet I could already feel the ground trembling beneath my feet. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows that made the walk home feel ethereal yet daunting. I replayed the tumultuous scene in the cafe over and over, as if desperately trying to grasp at the threads of my emotions that felt frayed and tangled. Lucas' gentle reassurances felt distant and muffled in the aftermath of Sarah's words, echoing through my mind like a haunting melody I couldn't escape. Be careful what you wish for, sweetheart. It was a phrase that wrapped around my heart like a vice, squeezing tighter with each step I took. Though I had wanted to escape the confines of my ordinary life, was I truly prepared for the tumult that may come with pursuing a future intertwined with someone like Lucas? Arriving home, the familiar scent of faded fabric softener greeted me. It was both comforting and suffocating. My mother sat in her worn armchair, flipping through an old magazine, her frail hands trembling slightly as they turned each page. The harsh light revealed deep shadows under her eyes, matching the fatigue that threaded through my own bones. "Hey, honey," she said, looking up at me with a sweet yet weary smile. "You're home early." "Yeah, just a long day." I tried to mask the turmoil churning inside me, knowing full well that she could read me like an open book. The concern that clouded her expression lifted the veil of my own facade. "How was your day?" She shrugged, the weariness of her body betraying her bright spirit. "You know, the usual. Watched some old shows, cleaned a bit. Your aunt called, said she might come visit next week." My heart sank slightly. Aunt Claudia's visits were always a mixed bag of kindness and comparison, her life a series of achievements that made my mother's sacrifices even more poignant. In some ways, it was a reminder of everything I hoped to rise above. "Okay, that'll be nice," I managed, but it was harder to smile through the pressure looming over my heart. Dinner was a thinly veiled affair, leftovers pulled from the fridge, the sounds of our utensils clinking against the plates filling the silence between us. Each bite felt like a struggle, the weight of Sarah's words still wrapped around my throat, stifling the small embers of hope I had ignited. "Is everything all right, sweetheart?" My mother's gaze was penetrating, as if she could see through my carefully curated smile. "Yeah, just some changes at work," I said, hoping to deflect her concern. "I might have some good opportunities coming up. You know how it is." Her expression softened with a mix of motherly love and worry. "Just be careful out there. Sometimes, what looks good on the surface isn't always what it seems." Her words resonated with the echoes of Sarah's earlier caution, wrapping around me like a tangled web. "I will, Mom. I promise." The promise felt heavy against my chest. Did I truly mean it? That night, as I lay in bed, shadows danced along the edges of my room, creating the illusion of specters lurking just outside my sight. I closed my eyes, hoping for sleep to come easily, yet my mind raced with images of Lucas, image after image of his compassionate smile, the way he believed in me when I could barely believe in myself. Could he be my way out? But what if Sarah was right? What if I was just another project in a long line of fleeting hopes, meant to be discarded when the novelty wore off? Just as my thoughts swirled into despair, my phone buzzed from the bedside table, illuminating the darkness. My heart skipped as I reached for the device, fingers trembling when I saw Lucas' name flashing on the screen. That I slid my finger across the screen, and his voice greeted me, soft and earnest. "Hey, I hope I'm not interrupting anything. I just wanted to check on you. I'm okay," I replied, forcing the tension from my voice. "Just a long day, you know." His silence stretched between us, creating an unspoken vulnerability in the air. "I really want you to know that whatever Sarah said, Lucas, it's fine. It's just noise, and honestly, I'm not sure I'm cut out for all of this." I gestured towards the shadowy corners of my room, wishing I could articulate the full weight of my feared, "No, it's not fine." His voice turned steely. "You deserve a chance. This isn't just some whim for me, Julia. It's more than that. I want to build something with tricks, no strings attached." His earnestness tugged at something deep within me, igniting a flicker of warmth in the cold expanse of my doubts. Yet even as hope sparked, the shadows loomed larger. "Lucas, what if it's not as simple as that? What if it could hurt us?" My heart raced as the raw possibility of our paths crashing together flashed in my mind like lightning. But what if it could save you? His voice dropped to a whisper, filled with a conviction that sent shivers down my spine. Before I could respond, a loud crash resonated from the kitchen, followed by a pained gasp from my mother. My heart plummeted into my stomach as I jumped from bed, instinct driving me forward. "Mom?" I called, panic gripping me tight. As I stumbled into the dimly lit kitchen, I found my mother hunched over on the floor, the remnants of a shattered plate surrounding her. Her face paled, eyes wide with shock. "Mom!" I rushed to her side, fear clawing through my insides. She looked up at me, her expression shifting from surprise to worry. "I'm fine," just slipped. But deep down, I could see the pain etched across her features. With every glance, I felt the gravity of sacrifice pull tighter around us both. "I'll call you back, Lucas." "I need to go," I said, disconnecting without waiting for his response. As I knelt beside my mother, my heart heavy with dread, I realized just how precarious our lives truly were. I had wanted a way out, a chance at something better, yet now I faced the very real possibility of losing everything I had fought to protect. And in that moment, as I grasped my mother's trembling hand, I realized that some dreams came with stakes so high, they could threaten to unravel the very fabric of our lives. The air was thick with tension, the aftermath of the crash reverberating in my heart. I knelt beside my mother, cradling her hand as she blinked away the shock from her eyes. The remnants of the shattered plate lay scattered on the floor, sharp edges glinting under the cold kitchen lights, a stark reminder of fragility, both of porcelain and of life itself. "What happened?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper, tinged with worry that I just didn't see it there. "Dear," she said, her words shaky yet resolute. "It's nothing. Just my clumsiness getting the better of me." But I couldn't shake the unease coursing through me. It felt like a crack in the carefully constructed facade of our lives. My mother had been unyielding in her strength for as long as I could remember, never admitting to weakness. Yet here she was, vulnerable, exposing a fragility that shook my foundation. "Let me help you up," I said, wrapping my arm around her waist and lifting carefully. She leaned against me, her weight a steady burden that somehow calmed my racing heart. "Just tired, honey. Don't worry about me," she replied, brushing off my concerns with a gentle smile. But even through the warmth of her words, I could see the shifts, the way her body trembled slightly, the way her breath hitched. With a keen ache in my chest, I helped her to the table and made some tea, the kettle whistling as it filled the space with a comforting hum. My mind was still reeling from Lucas' earnest voice moments ago. Here I was, caught between the blooming potential of love and a deep-rooted duty that pulled me back into the shadows of uncertainty. I set the steaming cup before her. She looked up at me, searching my eyes as though sensing my turmoil. "What's going on in that mind of yours?" she asked, concern creasing her brow. I sighed, sinking into the chair opposite her. "It's just everything: work, Sarah, and Lucas." Each name felt like a weight I carried, and with each mention, a new piece of me seemed to unravel. "Lucas?" Her gaze sharpened, an edge creeping into her voice. "Is he the nice boy from the cafe?" "Yeah," I said slowly, grappling with how to express my emotions. "He wants to be part of my life, but I don't know if I'm ready for that. And then there's everything with you." My voice trailed off, a wave of guilt washing over me. "Julia, listen to me." Her voice was soft but firm, slicing through my spiraling thoughts. "You deserve happiness. It's not selfish to chase after something that brings you joy. I want that for you. But what if I started?" My defenses rising. "What if I end up leaving? You're the one person I can't abandon, Mom. What if I become just another disappointment?" Her eyes glistened, and I wished I could take back my words. "You are no disappointment. You are my light," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "You have to promise me you'll follow your dreams. You've worked so hard for them, and I wouldn't want you to stay because of fear." The sincerity in her tone took my breath away, as if she could sense the depth of my struggle. I nodded, even as an undercurrent of dread twisted within me. But could I really take that leap and still protect her? We sat in silence for a moment, the tepid steam from the cups swirling like our thoughts. Just as I opened my mouth to speak again, the shrill ring of my phone broke through the stillness once more. I glanced at the screen. "Lucas," my heart raced as I picked it up, but this time, My fingers trembled with uncertainty. Would answering him now mean prioritizing my own desires over my mother's needs? Hey, Julia. His voice was warm and inviting, but I could detect an underlying urgency. I know this might be a bad time, but I really need to talk to you. About us. The weight of his words hung heavily in the air, a tangible pull that lured me away from my reality. But I looked over at my mother, who had picked up the cup and was sipping tea, her eyes cast down, an unreadable expression hidden behind the porcelain rim. Can we talk later? I managed to say, feeling every syllable like a weight on my heart. I'm dealing with some things here. Okay, but can you promise you'll call back? His voice was soft yet insistent, leaving a soft ache resonating within me. I will, I assured. Even as another wave of guilt washed over me, as I hung up, a heavy silence filled the kitchen, intertwining with the warmth of the steam rising from our cups. I looked at my mother, her tired eyes meeting mine, and I realized that this moment now was as important as any future I envisioned with Lucas. Maybe the greatest leap I needed to take was not into a relationship, but into the unconditional love and support that existed right in front of me. Just then, the phone buzzed again, a sharp contrast to the warmth of the tea. Hesitantly, I picked it up again, only to find a message that made my blood run cold. Julia, I hope you're okay. I saw your mother earlier. You might want to keep an eye on her. The sender's name was an unexpected jolt, Sarah. The message lingered in the air, heavy with implications I wasn't yet ready to face. As I turned to my mother, a chilling thought crept into my mind. What exactly did Sarah mean? The uncertainty coiled around my heart like a vice, squeezing tighter with every moment, and as I looked at my mother, I felt a sense of foreboding settle in the pit of my stomach. Maybe I wasn't just wrestling with my own future, but with an upheaval that could unravel everything I held dear. The air felt electric with unspoken truths, and a deep sense of foreboding wrapped itself around my heart like a thick fog. I could hardly breathe as I processed Sarah's message, her words echoing ominously in my mind. The burden of my mother's earlier vulnerability sat heavily upon me, and I couldn't ignore the worrying sense that something more was brewing beneath the surface. That I looked at her, my heart aching with a blend of love and apprehension. Mom, did anything happen today? At the cafe, for example? The question felt small against the weight of my concern, but it was the best I had at that moment. She tilted her head, her brow furrowing in thought. Nothing out of the ordinary, dear. Just the usual customers and a few late-night stragglers. Why do you ask? Her voice was light, but the crease in her forehead hinted at her growing confusion. Just worried about you, I said, forcing a smile that felt brittle. You seemed a little off earlier. I appreciate that, dear. I just need some time to recharge, that's all. She reached out, placing her hand over mine, a gentle reassurance that sent warmth coursing through me for a moment. But the nagging feeling in my gut refused to dissipate. As our conversation waned, the silence turned oppressive, pressing against me as I attempted to hold on to my mother's reassuring presence. Each tick of the clock felt magnified, and I found myself wishing for the comfort of the familiar chaos of the cafe's laughter, the bustle. But now, the tea had gone cold and the world outside my kitchen window felt distant and haunting. Let's finish what we started, I suggested, taking the initiative to clean the broken pieces of the plate off the floor, a task that seemed both mundane and monumental. As I rummaged for a broom, I sensed the lingering weight of unaddressed emotions. The message from Sarah still gnawed at me, each unbroken shard of porcelain symbolizing the fracture now evident in our lives. Honestly, Julia, you don't have to do that, my mother said softly, watching as I swept the debris into a pile, my hands trembling both from sadness and the effort of holding things together. I can take care of it later. No, I want to, I insisted, feeling the need to channel my anxiety into a task, a way to exert some control amidst the chaos swirling around us. With each sweeping motion, I tried to shake off the feeling that something dark lurked just outside our door. As I disposed of the fragments, a spark of hope ignited within me, reminding me of the kindness I had experienced today. I recalled Lucas' voice, filled with sincerity and longing, and how the reminder of his presence grounded me amid uncertainty. Perhaps, I thought, reaching for the notion of connection might do us both good. Let's have dinner together later, just the two of us. I suggested, looking up to meet her gaze. We can talk about everything work, you, and even Lucas. Her eyes softened, teasing me with an understanding that only a mother could possess. Dinner sounds lovely, Julia, she replied, a smile curving on her lips that eased a fraction of the tension nestled in the corners of my mind. I look forward to hearing all about him. You know, it's been a while since I've met anyone new in your life. Her acceptance reignited a flicker of hope, but just as I began to recalibrate my thoughts, the truth of Sarah's warning settled heavily on my shoulders once more. It was time to confront the shadows of our lives and unravel whatever was hidden just under the surface. Later that evening, as twilight crept into the sky, I found myself in the familiar warmth of the café place where I felt most at ease. The scent of coffee freshly brewed enveloped me, and I lost myself in the soothing rhythm of plates clinking and laughter bubbling. But still, I couldn't let go of the creeping worry about my mother that I watched the interactions of the patrons closely, searching for Sarah in the crowd. When she finally arrived, her energy seemed unervingly lighthearted, but I could see the worry painted across her face in odd contrast to her usual brightness. "Hey, Julia, you look a bit rough around the edges. Everything okay?" she asked with a delicate smile as she joined me at my table. "Sarah, I got your message earlier." I could feel my heart pounding as I fought to maintain steady eye contact. "What did you mean by it? Is my mom really okay?" Her expression turned serious. "I didn't want to alarm you, but she seemed a bit out of it yesterday, like she wasn't really there. I just thought you should know." The words dug deep, reawakening the tension I had tried so hard to push aside. "Out of it," I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you mean?" "Just distracted and unsteady. Like she was struggling with something. Like she was stretching herself too thin." I didn't mean to pry, but no, I interrupted, panic rising into my throat. "You're right. I need to know if she's not herself. She's been in and out of things lately, and I'm worried about her." Her eyes softened, and she reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "Julia, you're doing a great job holding it all together. Just remember to take a breather yourself sometimes." "Yeah?" As I nodded, I felt torn between my mother's needs and my own burgeoning feelings for Lucas. The uncertainty that littered my heart was like the scattered remnants of the plate, the reflections of what could be, but also the danger of sharp edges waiting to pierce through any moment of bliss. The thought lingered, and just as I was about to dive deeper into the conversation, the cafe door swung open, and in walked a figure that sent my heart catapulting into my throat. It wasn't just Anya, it was Lucas, his face a mixture of determination and hope. "Julia, listen, I need to talk to you now." His eyes held a glint of urgency that brought with it a new wave of anxiety. The muffled chaos of the cafe faded into the background as the world narrowed to just the two of us, the weight of uncertainty thickening the air between us. But what could he possibly say that would still the tide of fear rolling through me? And just like that, my heart raced with both hope and trepidation as I wondered if I would finally discover what lay hidden beneath the surface of all our struggles. The air felt charged, a thick pulse of emotion decorating the moment Lucas stood before me, his presence both a comfort and a catalyst for my mounting anxiety. The cafe, usually a cocoon of laughter and warmth, had shifted into a stage for something far more serious. I could feel the eyes of patrons on us, but it faded into a blur as I focused on the storm brewing within Lucas. "Now?" I echoed, struggling to find my voice amidst the clutter of my thoughts. "What's wrong? It seems urgent." He took a step closer, his expression amplifying the gravity of the situation as he glanced around before lowering his voice. "It's about your mom." An invisible weight settled over my chest, squeezing tighter as dread spiraled through me. "What do you mean? Is she okay?" My heart dropped, fearing the significance of his words. "She's been seen by someone," he started, his gaze darting, fitting the pieces together before my overwhelmed mind could respond. "I overheard at the office. I think she might be working with someone who could what?" I pressed, the lump in my throat aching to spill over. "Lucas, please, just tell me that someone who could be taking advantage of her," he finished, his voice a whisper of urgency. I didn't want to believe it either, but I think they're trying to manipulate her at the cafe. I felt the blood drain from my face, the truth of his words crashing around me like the remnants of that shattered plate. My mother, vulnerable and gentle, wasn't just struggling with the weight of her life, she was being drawn into something more sinister. My hands shook, and I grabbed the edge of the table to hold myself steady. Did I need to confront her? I declared, but the thought of facing this revelation clawed at my insides. Do you know who it is? No. Lucas' face darkened, and he stepped in closer, a protective instinct dancing in his eyes. But I can help. We can figure this out together. I promise, you're not alone in this. There was a sincerity in his tone that flickered like a candle, fragile, yet potent. The kindness of his offer momentarily soothed the tempest in my heart, lighting a pathway through my fear. But as doubts surged, the thought of my mother's trust in me wavered. Confronting the truth felt like looming ever deeper into unknown territory. And yet, with Lucas by my side, perhaps I could face it. Thank you, Lucas, I whispered, choking on the swell of gratitude and dread. Julia. The sound of my mother's voice pulled me from the whirlpool of emotions swirling in my head. She was standing near the cafe entrance, her worry sculpting lines on her face. The amusement she usually wore around patrons was absent. Is everything okay? You look pale. My heart raced at the sight of her, feeling as though the edges of reality were beginning to blur with fear. Mom, we need to talk. She hesitated, her gaze flicking to Lucas' concerned expression and back to mine. Can it wait until after dinner? I made a special pie I thought you'd love. Mom, I hesitated, swallowing back my emotions. It's important. Please. The air thickened with everything unspoken. I could feel the tension spiral between us, heavy with unexpressed fears and unshed tears. Lucas remained silently supportive beside me, and it ignited a flicker of strength within. All right, she said quietly, her voice faint but determined. Let's talk. With a heavy step, we found a table at the far corner of the cafe, away from prying eyes and lingering whispers. The small sanctuary felt far more vulnerable than the busy atmosphere outside. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears as I pushed through the knot in my throat. Mom, about what's been happening, I began, but the words clawed at me, insistent and full of despair, as all my fears threatened to spill over. You've been acting differently, and am worried about you. I heard from Sarah, her expression turned guarded, like a shield rising against the inevitable confrontation. Julia, I'm fine, she insisted, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of uncertainty. I promise, there's nothing to worry about. But Mom, Sarah said. Sarah doesn't know. She cut me off, a flash of frustration sparking in her eyes. You shouldn't take her word for it. She doesn't understand. Aren't you the one who taught me to trust those I care about? I pushed back gently, the rebellion in my heart fighting against the maternal walls she tried to construct. I can't stand by and watch while you're struggling. I care too much. Tears welled in her eyes as she shook her head, the facade of a brave front crumbling momentarily. You don't understand the whole situation, sweetheart. I'm doing my best to manage things. Just give me some time. Mom, the cafe, filled with laughter and chatter, felt a million miles away as I fought against the surge of anger and pain. It was when I noticed Lucas, his hand gently resting on my arm, that I paused. I could see the battle raging in his own expression, a silent plea for me to reconsider. Maybe we should listen to her, he suggested softly. But let her explain what's weighing on her directly. In that moment, a flash of understanding clouded my anger. The weight on my mother's shoulders was a shared burden, and as I looked at Lucas, I could see the threads of compassion weaving through this tense moment, a reminder of hope, even when the darkness threatened to envelop us. Okay, I relented, my heart still heavy with fear. Just know I'm here for you, Mom. No matter what. I know, she whispered, her voice thick with an unspoken promise. Just trust me. But as we sat there, the clock ticking on the wall, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A silhouette through the cafe window, a figure that pulled at the strings of dread coiling in my chest. It was a man I didn't recognize, and his gaze landed directly on our table, an unsettling familiarity lacing the air. Mom, I breathed, a chill sweeping through me as I pointed toward the window. Do you know him? Her eyes widened as she followed my line of sight, vulnerability flashing across her features. No, I don't. And in that moment, we both knew the depth of what lay ahead. Our fragile understanding had shifted, morphing into a new reality tinged with uncertainty. I glanced back at Lucas, his concern deepening, but as I turned my attention back to my mother, a shocking revelation settled like ice in my veins. Whatever was brewing beneath the surface was more dangerous than we could have ever anticipated. The cafe buzzed with energy, but to me, it felt as if the world had dimmed into muted shades of gray. The faces around us faded into the background, and all I could focus on was the unknown lurking just outside the window, on urgency thrumming through my veins like an electric current. Time stretched as we sat at our table, tension winding tightly around us like a rope, and I could see the realization settle heavily on my mother's face, carving lines of worry deeper into her skin. "Let's just go home," I finally suggested, my voice barely above a whisper. I needed to escape the looming confrontation, to pull us away from whatever storm was gathering outside. The thought of facing this unknown entity threatened to unravel everything. My mother met my gaze, her brows knitting together in concern. "Julia, we can't just ignore," but her protest was cut short as the figure by the window made his presence known, stepping toward the entrance of the cafe like a harbinger of the darkness we had nearly forgotten. "Mom, let's go," I repeated, urgency punctuating my words, and reluctantly, she nodded, rising carefully from the table. As we made our way to the door, I shot a glance over my shoulder, and there he was, standing under the cafe awning, eyes locked onto us with an intensity that sent shivers crawling across my skin. But I didn't wait to see if he would come after us. Instead, I grabbed my mother's hand, the weight of her delicate fingers entwined in mine anchoring me to a semblance of courage. The moment we stepped outside, I led her toward the parking lot with a mix of determination and fear swelling in my chest. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep the panic at bay, reasoning that she would have answers, a plan. But a sense of defeat flared in her eyes as we climbed into the car. "I had no idea," she replied, her voice quaking slightly. "I think I've been too absent, too caught up in my own struggles to notice anything outside my bubble." I drove away from the cafe. The weight of her admission sat uncomfortably on my heart. I wished I could extinguish the worry flaring inside me, urging the overwhelming question to the surface. What has she been hiding? I pulled into our driveway, the home that had always represented safety now overshadowed by dread, and as I parked, it hit me his was more than just an encounter with a stranger. There was something deeper, something tied to the fraying threads of our lives, waiting for us to unravel it. "Mom," I began as we sat in the car, the engine ticking off the residual warmth. "We need to talk about everything." She met my gaze, the weariness in her eyes telling me she understood the urgency, but the lines of her face reflected a reluctance to share. I took a deep breath, gathering the courage I needed. "I want to be here for you, but you have to let me in. What's really going on?" Finally, a flicker of understanding crossed her features, and slowly, she nodded. "All right, but let's go inside first. This isn't a conversation for the driveway." As we settled in the living room, a nervous energy lingered in the air, heavy with what was about to come. I felt the roots of my fears deepening, intertwining themselves with the hopes I had clung to. "Mom, I want to hear it all," I urged, leaning forward in my chair. "No more hiding." She exhaled deeply, the weight of her sigh filled with years of unspoken burdens. "I didn't want to worry you, Julia. I've been speaking with someone who works at the coffee, a new acquaintance. I thought it might be good to reach out, to connect." The fragments of her words tugged at my heart, and I found myself wanting to understand, but something was missing. The sincerity felt like a ghost. "But what do you mean by connect?" I pressed, carefully navigating through the frayed edges of the conversation, afraid of what lay beneath. "I've been feeling lost, and I thought maybe this person could help me get back on my feet. More than just the physical work, financial advice. Maybe a community. I was trying to help us, you know?" She pulled her gaze away, a hint of shame creeping into her tone. "Mom, this is a huge decision," I replied, my heart racing. "You can't trust everyone so easily. What if their intentions are not as pure as you thought?" But before she could respond, I felt the weight of our door jostle open, the creaking metal echoing in the silence. My stomach twisted as I turned to see Lucas walking in, his expression a mix of concern and disbelief at the unfolding tension. "Hey, is everything all right?" he asked, glancing between us, catching the undercurrents that flowed through the room. The moment Lucas stepped into the space, an unexpected warmth radiated from him. "Actually, no," I said without hesitation, my instincts kicking in. "It's about my mom. A stranger from the cafe. There's something not right." Understanding flooded his features as he quickly assessed the situation, and I felt a flicker of gratitude for his presence. "If you don't mind, we'll help," Lucas said, moving to my side. "We'll figure this out together." The air around us pulsed with an unspoken promise, and I could see my mother soften at his words, an embodiment of compassion bridging the gaps with unyielding strength. "I trust you for both of us." But then, something shifted. The door swung open with a shudder, and there stood the figure from the cafe, the same unsettling man, this time with a purposeful stride across the threshold, his eyes fixed on us with a predatory focus. "I think we need to have a little chat, don't we?" he said, his voice low and filled with menace. Panic roared through me, a wild pulse thundering in my ears, reality closing in. But as fear clawed at my heart, I noticed Lucas step forward, armor forged in unwavering resolve. "Get away from them," he said firmly, the light in his eyes igniting a surge of hope in my chest. "Is this the guy you've been confiding in, is it?" The man sneered, advancing closer. "Let's see how close you are before I reveal the truth." The tension thickened as I struggled between the instinct to flee and the need to stand by my loved ones with unwavering loyalty. Right then, as if the universe had conspired to awaken the very strength I needed, my mother placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "This isn't just about me. You have no right to intimidate us," she replied, voice fierce with resolve. I watched as Lucas moved with determination, positioning himself as a barrier between us and this ominous figure. And at that moment, fear curdled into defiance. Together, we would face whatever storm was brewing. Together, we would confront the truth lurking beneath the surface. The man raised an eyebrow, a grin curling at the edges of his lips. "Is that so? Be careful what you wish for, sweetheart. Reality has a way of bending when people start digging too deeply." The implications swirled in the air like poison, laying bare the stakes of our struggle. But I felt compelled to push back against the tide of uncertainty. A newfound fierceness ignited within me. "Whatever you think you know, we're stronger than you could ever imagine," I declared, grounding my voice with determination as my mother stood by me and Lucas shifted closer, an unyielding force at our side. The man hesitated, uncertainty flashing across his face. And in that moment, when the tension hung heavy like a taut string ready to snap, I grasped my mother's hand tightly, our bond the anchor that would see us through this tempest. As the confrontation unfolded, I felt the past and present collide, the shadows of our lives moving toward clarity, and in that charged moment, I realized this was the intersection of our fears and hopes, and we were ready to rewrite our fate. Nothing would stand in the way of the truth, and together, we would embrace the light that cut through the darkness. Yet deep down, I understood that the struggles ahead were just the beginning, a thread leading us into uncharted territory where love, resilience, and courage would become our unwavering companions. And in the echoing silence that followed, I knew the journey had only just begun, but we would rise together, unbreakable against whatever storm may come, our pasts no longer shadows to fear, but an ever-present guide toward the radiant dawn that awaited us at last. In the depths of uncertainty, beneath that charged moment where the past, present, and future coalesced, I finally breathed out the promise that had been lurking in the corners of my heart. We're going to find our way through this. And as we faced the darkness ahead, I held on to that declaration, knowing that our light was only just beginning to shine.